Assalamu alaikum jami'an. Greetings everyone. So in today's video we're going to be looking over my recommended resources for learning radiology as a student or as an intern. I should mention, by the way, that you're not expected to be radiologists. None of us are. And of course I'm a little bit dark in the room, but that's on purpose. I'm trying to mimic being a radiologist. I'm just kidding. Anyway, your goal isn't to be a radiologist. Your main goal is to know the basics. You know what I mean? You know the basics of MRI, know the basics of CT scan, know the basics of X-ray. Really, if there's one imaging you should master, it is the X-ray, because the X-ray is the only imaging in which there will not be any report from the radiologist. If you ordered an X-ray, you yourself is expected to look at it and interpret it for your own. So what I'm going to be recommending is really resources for people who are studying in radiology in their medical school, or they're interested in radiology for their residency, or they're taking an elective, or maybe even R1s by any chance. But in general, what I'm recommending here are very excellent, free, inshallah, free resources that you can use to learn radiology, from X-rays all the way to MRI, and if you're very daring, MRI, although MRI is the final boss in radiology. So we're going to start with, in front of you, all the resources. So we're going to start with number one, Radiology Assistant. Radiology Assistant is a website. You just type it in. Radiology Assistant is an excellent website, by the way. This website is basically a group of lectures in text that gives you everything that you want in details. For example, if I'm someone that wants to learn, for example, the segmental anatomy of the liver, I can go to this section and it will show me, basically a presentation, that is separated into different pages, or different tiny little planes of pages. So here's the segmental anatomy, here's the table of content, and there's a very beautiful pictures with a text right next to it to show you what it is. Radiology Assistant, the only problem with it is it's a little bit advanced, but if you're able to do a little bit of Googling, it's an excellent resource, especially if you are revising for a very specific topic. If you want to learn the segmental anatomy, of the liver, especially on CT scan or MRI, you want to do it through Radiology Assistant. It's very excellent, very nice pictures with very nice figures, as well as, the learning part. So this is for segmental anatomy, and of course, if you want to know about the brain anatomy, for example, you can go over here. You can learn all about, the brain anatomy. And there's pediatrics, there's musculoskeletal, for example, arthritis. What is the approach, to diagnosing arthritis on imaging? Joint space narrowing. Is every case of joint space narrowing osteoarthritis? Not necessarily. You have other differentials, so you have a systematic approach here. And very beautiful figures and very beautiful text here to give you a systematic approach to diagnosing arthritis. So again, Radiology Assistant is an amazing resource. You can use it to look for a specific topic to read about. But the only main issue is that it's a little bit advanced. And for example, if you want to learn about protocols, in CT scans, they have a protocol for injecting contrast, arterial, portovenous, and whatnot. So if you want to learn about this stuff, you can do it through here, but it's a little bit advanced. Again, if you're willing to do a little bit of Googling, it's an excellent resource, nothing more. Okay? So this is pretty much for Radiology Assistant. Okay? Now, the next one is Radiopedia. The same idea as before. If you're looking for specific cases, really cases to test yourself upon. For example, I want to test myself on a liver abscess. So I want to look for cases on liver abscess, and I'll find many thousands, hundreds of cases about liver abscess or something related to it. I want to have a playlist. If I want to look at all the playlists for CT liver, I can do so. There are people out there that did playlists for liver CT. And you can filter it by system. You can do filtering by the largest playlist. This is the largest playlist, 200 cases, mashallah. You can look at it and you can test yourself. And in every case, if I click on one of them, it will show me every single case in this playlist, as well as, the report, the indications. Of course, it's a little bit slow. I'm going to have to do a little bit of loading, but in general, it'll show you all the cases you want to test yourself. So Radiopedia is an excellent resource if you want to test yourself on a number of cases. And it's Radiopedia. It's a Wikipedia for radiologists. All right. So if you want to look at specific cases, you can do so. And here you go. For example, actual real images. As you can see, there's multiple cysts here in the liver that you can test yourself. Different slices, different phases on CT scan if you want. And if you look at this, this is the presentation if you want to read about it. And if you want to read about the findings for this CT, you click over here. It'll tell you the findings. And if you want to look at the final result, you click over here. And it'll tell you that the purpose of this report was to show you something about hepatic cyst. This is the discussion and the related articles. So if you want to click on one of them, here it is. I can read an article about hepatic hydride cyst infection. It's like a Wikipedia. I can even do a favorite if I have an account. I got to do an account, to have it as my favorite. So I can read everything about hepatic hydride infection, CT treatment prognosis. I can look at all the related cases and figures over here. All of it related to this article. So Radiopedia is excellent. If you want to read articles, you have it. You want to do cases? You got it. You want to do MCQs? You got it. If you want to do random MCQs. You want to look for courses, although they're not free. But if you want to pay for courses, there are. There are many, many courses by Radiopedia. They did for abdominal CT. They did for chest X-ray. I haven't paid for any of them. And Saraha, I don't recommend it. Because you do have YouTube for that. But if you are a resident, for example, and you're really struggling with a specific topic, I actually think these courses might be beneficial for you. But there is always YouTube if you're not willing to pay. Of course, there are some videos here, but you can check it out if you want. So they have courses here, of course, and they have quizzes. So Radiopedia is actually what 99.9% of residents are using. It's not their main studying resource. Be careful. They're not using this as their main study resource, but they are using it for looking up things quickly on the computer. And they're very great. They're excellent for students and interns like me. So you can do an account, by the way. Sign in with an account and go ahead. Try out Radiopedia. It's a very excellent supplementary material. After Radiopedia, you have textbooks. Now, there are many, many, many textbooks for radiology. But again, you're not expected to be a radiologist. What you want to know is master the basics of chest imaging. So by far, my number one recommended textbook you need to read as a student, as an intern, is Felson's Principle of Chest Rheumatology. Felson created a textbook, which is unlike any other textbook. You see, what makes this textbook very special? It's an MCQ textbook. He teaches you the information through MCQs. So it's not just a big ball of paragraph. It's literally MCQs, and he teaches you the topic based on the MCQs with images. So this book will let you master the basics of chest X-ray, of chest CT, everything that you want to know about chest imaging. This is the number one textbook, and it's a very short textbook. It's not long. It's like 300 pages, and it has a lot of quizzes, a lot of MCQs. You need to finish this textbook if you want to master chest X-ray, the basics of it at least, as well as chest CT. So Felson is an excellent, excellent, excellent resource. Besides Felson, if you finish this textbook, you do Herring Radiology. Now Herring, he tells you the basics. He teaches you the basics for every modality. For CT, for MRI, for ultrasound. Here he goes into a little bit of detail for every modality, but not too much detail. I recommend Herring Radiology after you finish Felson. Herring is an excellent textbook if you want to finish it within 1 month. Yes, 1 month of reading if you're taking an elective, for example, or you're doing a rotation in radiology. So it's a very excellent resource that you want to do after you finish with Felson. And if you're someone who's using Anki, if you know what Anki is, it's a flashcard program. If you're interested in Anki, you can look up, Anki flashcards for this textbook, which is readily available. And of course, if you're someone who doesn't know what Anki is, you can look up my YouTube channel if you want, or I did Anki for radiology, or you can look it up on medicine if you want to know what Anki is. It's a flashcard program. So if you want to make flashcards from this textbook, by all means. So we have 2 textbooks. Otherwise, what else? We have eAnatomy. Again, this is also a very important resource. Now, eAnatomy is an app, all right? You'll find it on iOS. Now, eAnatomy is not free. You need to make an account and you need to subscribe to this app, and it's very expensive. Now, fortunately, you don't need to pay for it. All you need to do is connect yourself with a resident. There's absolutely a resident in radiology in any university, in any hospital. He has a subscription. You can get his account and he'll hook you up. He'll get you this subscription to eAnatomy, and it will help you tremendously. Now, what eAnatomy is, it's eAnatomy, all right? It's an app that literally lets you visualize a CT scan like in real life. But the difference is they are labeled like this. They're readily labeled directly in front of you in real time. Excellent resource, because this resource, if you find, for example, a CT scan, you can directly determine what this organ is, what this vessel is. So that's what eAnatomy is. So eAnatomy, all you need to do is ask a resident, give you his account, and you'll get pretty much a free subscription to this wonderful, wonderful app. So eAnatomy is amazing for knowing the anatomy on CT, on brain MRI, on ultrasound, anything that you want. All right? So eAnatomy, followed by the 2 textbooks, followed by Radiopedia and Radiology Assistant. And finally, we will conclude our video. So, to summarize, let's assume you're a student. Let's assume that you are an intern. You're doing a radiology rotation, or you're studying for radiology. My recommendation, كالتالي, as advised, you should start number 1 with Felson. All right, X-rays. No radiology will do it for you. You order a chest X-ray, you will do the reporting. What I mean by that is that you will read it for yourself. No one will read it for you. So my recommendation is to completely read the Felson book. The Felson book, if you read it completely, you'll be good to go with chest X-ray. If you want to supplement this with Radiopedia, by all means. You want to supplement the textbook with Radiology Assistant? By all means. You want to supplement it with YouTube? By all means. But your main study resource will be Felson. Once you finish the Felson textbook, proceed with the Herring Radiology textbook, where you will learn X-ray, CT, MRI basics, among other things. And if you're interested in Anki, you have these. So, those are my recommendations, and if you are interested in other resources, although I have not used them myself, this is a wonderful table that summarizes all the online resources for radiology, although I have not tested them myself. What I recommend, Saraha, is the more than enough for a student, for an intern, even for an R1 who's just now entering residency and he wants to start with learning the anatomy. Actually, the most important part in radiology is the anatomy. If you master the anatomy, you will eventually master the pathology. So, my recommendation, Felson, your primary study resource, finish it, go with Herring. Your supplementary resources with these 2 textbooks, Radiopedia, Radiology Assistant. And if you're interested in Anki, you have Anki flashcards for these 2 bad boys. How long will this take? Maybe 2 months, maybe 3 months, up to 1 year. It's up to you, really. What matters is knowing the basics. So those are all the resources that I would recommend for radiology. And thank you very much.